Hey folks, Fernando doing another video for the Modern Survivalist, and as you probably know, Queen Elizabeth II has passed. Now, this is a channel about survival and preparedness. I consider that a very important aspect of survival and preparedness, and basically enjoying a good quality of life in general, is awareness. Awareness in terms of what's happening around you, what's happening in that street, a few feet ahead from you, but also what's happening in more of a global context. That's why I talk so much about different political realities around the world. Now, this is a woman that is, the head of the British royal family beyond, any kind of debate, one of the richest, most powerful families in the world. And this is what some of the more significant figures of the media had to say about this. This is from Fox News, and this is Tucker Carlson.
Dignity while living in the public eye. Most of us could not in another. It's not easy to maintain your dignity while living in the public eye. Most of us could not pull it off for an afternoon. Queen Elizabeth did it for more than 70 years. I want to ask you all, she wrote.
So dignity. Dignity is a word I hear a lot. Dignity, okay, I'll put a pin on that and get back to that in a second. Dignity, it's a word that we've been hearing a lot in the media after the passing of Queen Elizabeth. Here we have Russell Brand, which Russell Brand is someone that comes more of the left-wing side of things, even though we agree with many of the things he says, and I definitely do. I always notice that he always brings up news, and he's always quoting and referencing socialist websites and media outlets. That's okay, because he readily admits himself to be more of the socialist type of mentality, or this idea of small local government. Now, which is kind of strange, because he's wearing black in mourning of the passing of Queen Elizabeth. So how does that, the idea of small local government and being against the rich and powerful, it kind of, well, this is what he has to say.
Or to know. The success of that show, The Crown, demonstrates our intrigue. This is a folk tale come to life. It's been often said of Elizabeth II that it was her kind of de facto stoicism, her reserved persona that allowed us to project onto her, that she considered it her duty to be a symbol. This dutifulness is one of the things that you'll hear spoken about and espoused in many of the obituaries that will come in the following days. For the people of Britain, there's going to be 10 days of mourning. There's going to be the transition to a new monarch.
Okay, so the folk tale, The Crown, that's another interesting one. The Crown, right? The series, the idea that you have so much in the media supporting the idea of, the folk tale, like a fairy tale. It's almost like a fairy tale having a monarchy. That is interesting, and we'll talk about that in a second. This is Michael Knowles. This is one of my favorite bits.
That is gone, a generation that puts service above personal interest, and a generation that valued and exemplified and put into their very lives the heights of Western culture and civilization. That's what it feels like to me, at least. I think that's what it feels like to a lot of people. Service was at the heart of this woman's life. She never retired.
Service. Okay. Let's put a pin on that too. Service. A life of servitude to others. Now, I can't go on with this much more. It hurts my brain. I don't know if it's really a level of ignorance that it has reached this point. This is Michael Knowles. He has over 1 million subscribers. He's part of the Daily Wire. Anyway, one of the things I don't know, and please comment below what you think this is. I don't know if it's a matter of orchestrated propaganda, or if it's truly a matter of ignorance. Because the idea of someone being so stupid so as to think for a second that Queen Elizabeth had a life of service to others, and this is a word I see all the time, and I get it. People are damn stupid and easy to manipulate. I get that. But do you know what the word service actually means? Servitude. Slavery, bondage, condition of being enslaved. That's the origin of the term, right? We understand that someone that's a servant today may probably not be, even though we live in a world where slavery still exists, guys. Slavery still exists. But slavery is definitely something that Queen Elizabeth did not do. And servitude is also something that she has never even been close to. This goes to the roots of who this person literally is. If you are the king or queen of a country, you're not in a condition of service. It's actually the exact opposite. If you go to the social status that you hold in the world, right, above everything else, it is being royalty, and above the top of the royalty is being king and queen. That is the exact opposite of being a slave, of being someone that is in condition of servitude. If you go by, I don't want to make this too long, but here I have, look this up in Wikipedia, serfdom. The idea, the serf is something very similar to the servant. It's a little bit above a servant. But above everything else, you have the king and queen. You have your lords. You have your royalty, right? Then you continue going down. You have the gentlemen, the freemen. You have the free tenant. Then you have the serf, the villain, the villager. A word closely linked to that. That's where you come with these words. Then you have the domestic servant, right? The domestic servant is, yes, more aligned with what in modern world would be considered a servant. You have a domestic servant in your house. The cleaning lady would be an example of a modern day servant. She's paid. She enjoys rights like the rest of the people, at least in some parts of the world, depending on where you are. Because if you live under a monarchy, you are below royalty. Royalty is always going to be above you if you are a commoner, if you are a simple peasant, even in today's world. More on that later. Then you have your domestic servant, and then you have your slave, right? Now, in the world we live in right now, until not that long ago, slavery still existed. Now, if I talk about slavery, you would think, yeah, that is from Middle Ages. Yes, it is from Middle Ages. If we talk about slavery, you would think, oh, but that's despicable. That is horrible. Living in slavery, or even the idea of having slaves. Well, we don't have slaves anymore. We do have royalty, though. And royalty is above the common man. It's above the peasant. It is still the idea of you having a lesser or better status in the world that we live in, simply based on you being who you are. Either you being of a certain ethnicity, a certain color of skin, a certain genetic. If you come from a certain family and you happen to be a royal, you will enjoy rights that the peasant, the commoner, doesn't. And in the eyes of what we see today, especially from actually many of these guys that we are watching right now, many of these will readily complain and point out the horrible elite, the globalist elite that is ruling over. Who the hell are they really talking about? Because if there's something that is one of the key components of the elites in the world as it exists today, it's precisely this: the royal family. The British royal family is one of the richest, most powerful families in the world. And the elite is constituted by these extremely powerful economic groups and families. If you go back, it's the idea of the New World Order being a conspiracy. Well, it's not a conspiracy, and it's really not all that old. If you go into down this rabbit hole, you realize there's not so much rich, powerful individuals. It's actually rich, powerful families that rule the world. That constitutes the real elites, the elite that perpetrates itself as history goes on. If you go by the royal family, you definitely see that. If you go into banking, if you look into the Rothschilds, which are strongly linked, Rothschilds very much linked to the British royal family. So the idea of some being at a higher level than others, socially speaking, legally speaking, something that's accepted in the common imagination of society in a broader way. Yes, you have royalty in different countries. Some of them more rich and powerful than others. The richest, most powerful British royal family by far. I think that the Dutch, or the ones that's Maxima, that family is also very wealthy. They own Shell and several other, interests, but you're talking about some of the richest people in the world. This is shared with the financial elite. When you look at your Rothschilds, when you look at your Rockefellers, when you look at some of the richest families in the world that have been in power for generations. Now, a guy, for example, like Elon Musk, he may eventually become that. Even though he has a massive amount of wealth, he hasn't got that power, that penetration in all of the cogs of the ruling elite. So he is definitely part of something that may eventually become that if he manages to continue that in generations to come. He is sharing the economic aspect. He's not sharing, though, the influence aspect, the having family members and interests and people that you basically own in some of the more significant roles in government all over the world. That's where the real power is. If you own all of these people, if you own these guys, if you own the owner of Fox News, if you are in part owner of it yourself, but you're the owner of the company that owns, and you own the guy that you're watching here, and you own all of these guys that you see here, right? Because of the economic and influence power that you have, that's definitely being part of the globalist elites. And the idea of globalism itself, it originates also with this woman. Well, actually, what this woman actually represents, the colonialism, was the original globalism. It's everything under the influence of the royal family. It's everything under the influence of the powerful, rich families and economic groups that rule over the world. And this is something that continues even today. And these guys will be the first ones to say, the evil globalist elites. Well, who are you talking about specifically? Because when I say the elites, I'm talking about people like this. I'm talking about people like this. So let's go back to this idea of dignity. Right? The idea of dignity that Tucker Carlson was mentioning. We obviously have very different ideas of dignity, because let me know in the comments section below, would you consider someone that spends quite a bit of your time in Lolita Island, the one owned by Jeffrey Epstein, that where he took little girls for very powerful, rich, and influential people to abuse of? And this is the case of Prince Andrew, and he's there with his mother, Queen Elizabeth. Now, when all of this went down and we finally saw this picture of Prince Andrew with his arm against a 17-year-old Virginia Giuffre that was brought there by the Madame Giselle Maxwell, the personal assistant of Epstein, that organized all of this for this rich, powerful people to enjoy. And yes, there's Donald Trump here. There's Bill Gates as well. There's Bill Clinton, good old horn dog there, could not miss from this list. All of these guys, all of these people. You think that if any of these could point the finger at one another, they wouldn't do that? This is all real. All of this happened. All of these men traveled to an island where they enjoy some of their darkest, most sick perversions, because they've been so powerful and so rich for so long that nothing is enough for them. If you think that this man couldn't find a beautiful young woman for him to spend time with him willingly, you're nuts. You don't get it. But they've had that for so long, for generations, that they've lost perspective of things. In the same way this woman lost perspective of, please try to distance yourself from Andrew. He's just been caught, abusing of a 17-year-old. It really wouldn't look all that good if you were just right there by his arm. You can imagine what? Andrew had sex with a peasant and I'm not spending time with my son? Are you insane, you servant? Go away, you crazy peasant. That would be word by word the kind of conversation you would expect from people like this. In their mind, it is ridiculous to even propose the idea that she's not going to be spending time with her favorite son simply because he had, intercourse with a underage girl in some perverted island. What else is he supposed to do with his time? He's a royal. He's part of the global elite. He can do whatever the heck he wants. And if you think that's the worst thing he's done, man, you lack the imagination I have. And if you think that all of these people were having good old orderly sex, consensual, and that's the worst thing that they've done, and that's what they fear was caught in tape and is being used against them as leverage by some agencies that orchestrated all of this, you're nuts. But this is what is it, the word that Tucker Carlson used?
Shortly before dignity while living, she was born in one world and died in another. It's not easy to maintain your dignity while living in the public.
The dignity, yes, that is the dignity that he is talking about. The dignity of these people. We obviously have very different ideas of what dignity is and what good is, because I don't consider this kind of thing to be any kind of dignity in it. Also the idea, because this is the same guy, this is Tucker Carlson, this would be the same man that told me that Ukraine is not it's a dictatorship, it's not a democracy. Yeah, it was him who said that Ukraine was not a democracy because Zelensky has money in offshore accounts. Well, you know who has money in offshore accounts? Queen Elizabeth. Right beyond her massive wealth, being literally queen of a country. Beyond that, money hitting, this is from the Paradise Paper leaks, reveals Duchy of Leicester put money into retailers criticized for exploiting poor families. Exploiting poor families. It's never enough for them. The massive wealth that they have, we're exploiting. We're not exploiting. We're the royalty. We do whatever the fuck we want with our money, with our time, and with our peasants. The idea that I want people to understand this, that when you live in a world where slavery exists, then you understand how that is morally wrong. But living in a world where royalty exists, that is also just as messed up. And you may be thinking, oh, you obviously don't. I understand everything. Everything that you think you understand, believe me, I can understand as well, and probably a little bit more than that. But even though you have you vote and you have your prime minister elected, that prime minister that you elect is bending the knee to this same people. So you have this idea that you voted for someone, that someone you voted for, no matter who that is, he's going to be bending the knee, just like it happened just a few days ago, bending the knee to the same people that really own everything around you. And when she used to talk about her ministers, they are hers. They belong to her. Do you not understand that, you stupid peasant? And they don't need to clarify this all the time. Because that's simply the way it is, and that's the way in which people accept the world basically works. But some of these guys were talking about, and Michael Knowles was particularly, I mean, he was up there sucking very bad. You know, he was licking those royal buttholes like a little poodle. The idea that these people have brought peace, prosperity, and happiness to the world. Again, do you think the elite does that currently? Do you think that the globalist elite, that they themselves criticize all the time? I do as well. The only difference is that I understand who I'm talking about when I talk about the global elite. I'm talking about these same people. They obviously either don't understand that or they choose not to understand it. I don't know which one it is. Now, I think it was Tucker Carlson that was making a case. I don't know who wrote that for him, but how the British Empire was one of the most benevolent empires. The British Empire not only dominated most of the world through colonialism in a very brutal, savage way, but even till this day, man, if you look at some of the, a lot of people don't know this, but the last concentration camps in Europe, they were in Northern Ireland and under the rule of the British monarchy and the British government. Operation Demetrius, 1971 to 1975. If you were Catholic and they just felt as throwing your ass in a concentration camp, that's where you spent your time. And beyond that, one of the worst, genocides in modern times. It wasn't really that long ago, 1850. In 1850, it was decided that the Irish problem would be solved by genocide, by killing, starving to death masses of people in Ireland. As you probably don't know, because that's the truth. Books are written by people in power, and people in power probably don't want you to understand this all that much. But you probably do know that Ireland was dominated was conquered and dominated by the British Empire a long time ago. It's only quite recently that Ireland managed to win its own independence. Even though they won and they finally became a separate country with no interest whatsoever of being part of any kind of Commonwealth, because they've been shot and massacred enough so as to never want to have anything to do with that. A small part of Ireland, which is the part which is Northern Ireland, where I lived for years, so I don't have to read up about the opinion of others regarding what this place is today. I know because I lived there. I wasn't spending a few days there or holidays. I lived there for years, so I know exactly what it is. And one of the, as beautiful a place as it is, there's one thing that you know, if you ever lived in Northern Ireland for a time, it's the sadness. There's a sadness that's been there for a long time, and it's a very polarized society. You have the very, very, very British, more British than the British a part of the society, and then you have the very Irish part, which are completely polarized, and they literally need peace walls to separate them, and conflict even then still exists. But all of that comes from a time in which the colonialism was about being ruled by monarchs and royals, and a feudal system by which the peasant was submitted by the British Crown and their representation. Now, for the solution of the Irish problem, the idea was, let's starve people to death. Now, in books, that's sold as the potato blight. You may probably think that this happened because there was a disease in the potatoes, and potatoes was what Irish eat, right? So the potatoes. No, it wasn't that. It was actually, we now know that those same years in which the Irish were starving to death, and millions, and another million had to leave the country because they would literally starve to death themselves. But this was actually all orchestrated and planned as a solution to the Irish problem. And these people, they died while at the same time they were exporting record amounts of food from Ireland. So you cannot justify the starvation of millions of people in that island simply because of a disease in a potato, while at the same time you have record export. Not only that, there's the story of some crown prince in Middle East sending food to Ireland so as to help with people, because this went on for a few years, sending food for the starving people in Ireland, and the British government blocked that ship from arriving and delivering that aid for people that were starving to death. It was all planned and orchestrated. This idea is benevolent, even against their own people, in the rebellious Scots to crush. The idea that Scotland also needs to be crushed as well. That's also part of this benevolent system. Anyway, what this brings us to today is that we live in a world where you have an elite. You may have an elite that is economic, that is based on influence and power. You have part of that elite that is literally above the common peasant because they literally are royal, okay? And when you have something like that, the idea of mourning or feeling sorry for the passing of a 96-year-old woman that has enjoyed wealth and luxury beyond the wildest dreams of most people, I don't align with that. I simply cannot feel that same way. And it's not because I'm an evil monster. I'm actually a very sensitive person. But you know who I feel a lot more sympathy for? People like these. People like these starve or freeze to death. Millions of elderly Brits fear a grim choice this winter as Scots spiral. Right? That's the people I feel a lot more empathy for. And it's because of this system. It's because of the system that benefits people like these. This is just one part. It's a big part though, but it's one part of the economic elite, the influence elite that rules the world and has been ruling the world for generations. The New World Order, again, it's not that new. It's been around for a very long time. These are the people that compose that elite, right? Benefiting from the misery of others. And it was just in 2018, it was estimated, fuel poverty, 3,000 Britons dying each year because of fuel poverty. This was in 2018. This year, I was reading, it was estimated that 50,000 Brits will die of fuel poverty. Fuel poverty basically means that you don't have enough money to stay warm during winter. Winter is pretty harsh in the British Isles, and if you don't have the money to finance that, you will have to make a choice. You will either have to put food on the table or you will have to stay warm. And of course, most people choose to put food on the table, and they don't even die. They don't even realize that they die because they cannot afford to keep their homes warm enough so as to stay healthy and safe. That's the choice they have to make. And you're not good. I mean, you're going to be reading these articles. This is something that you can Google up yourself. You will find this if you do it. If you do your own research. The latest numbers, I was reading about 50,000 are expected to die this winter because they cannot afford to heat their homes. Right? Look it up. Read about it yourself. I have cancer and I can't afford to heat my home. How are you going to be dealing with cancer when you cannot even afford to stay warm in winter? Right? And yes, these are, instead of showing you the bags of corpses, they show you the smiling lady with the bright colors. This is all part of the propaganda. Part of the propaganda is what Russell Brand was talking about shows like The Crown, shows like Peppa Pig with the king and queen and Peppa Pig, and they're all nice. Well, the idea, how is it that kings and queens come to be? Do you know that? Do you know how someone becomes a king or a queen? You're basically a conqueror. Now, if you manage to sustain that position through time, in time, you pass along that to your offspring, your children, and if your family continues in that power. But that's simply continuing the process that started with at first domination of the people, right? That's how you literally end up becoming a king or queen or of someone, or of a nation, of a group of people. Yeah, and the idea that this is something, the fairy tale. The idea of this being fairy tale material, it's from themselves. They are the ones that spend millions and millions and billions of dollars in having this social engineering machine continue to do all of this, to do this kind of stuff. The idea, a life of servitude. The idea, that is maybe the thing that I find the most ridiculous, the most gaslighting of the entire world. Convincing the world, or at least a large part of it, that a queen spent a life of servitude. That is not understanding the basic concept of what servitude is, what service is. I mean, I'm pretty sure that Tucker Carlson has a maid, someone working in her house, a cleaning lady, whatever word, a Mexican lady that does the dishes or cooks for him, or I'm pretty sure that people like Tucker Carlson and Russell Brand and this other guy and all of these people, I'm sure they have people working for them that are not exactly in their same social and economic status. And you have people that are basically serving you because you pay them. Now, it's no longer slavery, right? And again, slavery and servitude, these are words that are specifically linked. But in the modern term of servitude, I'm pretty sure they have people that serve them for a somewhat fair wage. I'd like to think that. But how is it that they associate that? I mean, this guy has nothing. Michael Knowles does his own, cleans his own house. He hasn't got a cleaning lady. The cleaning lady, dude, is the one that is serving you. The cleaning lady serves you. She's a servant, a modern day servant. Your cleaning lady, your gardener, the people that are doing these tasks that you rather not do yourself, those are in your service. The idea that the richest, most powerful woman in the world was serving you, it's either that you're a fool or that you're an outright liar, and you know you are, and you know you're gaslighting people into thinking that the exact opposite of what's really happening is what's supposed to be believed. And this is a typical strategy from not only the left, but people in power. When you have real power, because this is a strategy used by Venezuela and Maduro, where you get your patriotic card, which is basically a slavery card, but it's called a patriotic card. I'm a patriotic person because I have my patriotic card. Now, in the United States, the idea of the Federal Reserve, exact same concept. It's not federal, and it's definitely not a reserve. It's actually a group of private bankers that are deciding how much money they're giving themselves and how far they can exploit the rest of the world with the economic system they install themselves. The economic system that the elite, the banking elite, install themselves. The economic elite that it's composed by people like this woman, like people like these guys that you see here. Well, maybe not Kevin Spacey. He's more of an influence in the public sphere regarding actors and Hollywood, right? But these guys right here, absolutely. Do you understand what I'm talking about here? I know it's a longer video. I hope you stayed for it. But this is what I try to do in my channel. If it was just about doing quick, clicky videos, man, I wouldn't be doing stuff like this. But I try to go beyond those basic concepts, and I try to do a little bit more than just stick to the fundamentals of what survival and preparedness is about, even practical, realistic survival, like I do in my channel and my work. Which, by the way, if you're new to the channel, you have my books, which are available in Amazon in the links below. Surviving the Economic Collapse, which is something that we are seeing more and more, in a great degree, caused by the elites that we are supposed to be mourning right now. But yeah, it's the kind of thing I do. I don't hope I change anyone's mind. I mean, you sometimes do. I often get emails and messages from people that, dude, you changed the way I think. You opened up my eyes to things that I didn't see that way before, and now I get it. It's not the most common thing. The most common thing is someone in UK making a nasty comment of, how dare you criticize the queen that served us so well for so long. You have no idea. So yes, there's going to be a lot of that, and that's fine. I'm okay with that. That's good. Not everyone can understand what I'm talking about here. It takes a certain amount of work, commitment, and an ability to think beyond your little cage. But everything I just said is absolutely true. I haven't gone into anything conspiracy theory-like or something that's not publicly known. Every single thing I've said is publicly known and accepted. Why is it that we accept it, though? Why is it that not only do we accept that people like this rule over us, but that you should also be saddened and you should be grateful for a life of service, because you saw the old lady share a sandwich with a fake CGI created teddy bear, right? Folks, that's going to be all for now. I hope you enjoyed the video, and see you on the next one. Take care.